I'm going to step off the limb. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
On July 20th, 1969, when astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human to set foot on the surface of the moon and spoke those famous words, the John C. Stennis Space Center in Hancock County, Mississippi, played a key role in propelling him and his fellow astronauts on that remarkable journey. Stennis Space Center was established in the 1960s to test the engines that powered the Saturn V moon rocket for the Apollo program.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things.
When President John F. Kennedy made his historic announcement in 1961 that the United States would put humans on the moon by the end of the decade, the plan called for a place to test the huge rocket engines. Hancock County, Mississippi had the three major components NASA needed to undertake such an enormous endeavor. This location had thousands of acres of sparsely populated land and an easy waterway access, the East Pearl River. The site's water access was essential for transporting large rocket stages between the manufacturing plant at Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans, Stennis Space Center, Marshall Space Flight Center in Alabama, and Kennedy Space Center. The Hancock County location also had the support of a man who believed in his home state and his nation's hopes and dreams, Senator John C. Stennis. And on May 17, 1963, construction began on the National Rocket Test Site in South Mississippi. Less than 3 years later, with an earth-rattling roar on the morning of April 23, 1966, the first engine test at Stennis for the Apollo program swept southern Mississippi and Louisiana into the space age. The vast tracts of densely forested land surrounding the 13,800-acre test site provided a natural acoustical buffer zone to shield neighboring communities from the rumble of the engine tests. That 125,000-acre buffer zone is now considered a national asset. When the Apollo program ended in 1972, the test stands at Stennis were converted for what would become the main line of business at the center for more than 30 years, testing all of the main engines for the space shuttle. On May 19, 1975, the first test firing of a space shuttle main engine at Stennis ushered the center into a new era of spaceflight. Since that first test, Stennis has reached many significant milestones in the space shuttle main engine program, like surpassing 1 million seconds of testing and flight operations during a hot fire test on January 21, 2004. The Space Shuttle program is set to retire in the year 2010. Until then, Stennis will continue testing the main engines that propel the spacecraft into orbit.
Booster ignition and liftoff of Shuttle Discovery.
As the Space Shuttle program draws to an end, NASA's Constellation program is moving forward in developing the next generation of spacecraft, the Orion Crew Exploration Vehicle and the Ares 1 and Ares 5 launch vehicles. These spacecraft will once again return astronauts to the moon, with eventual journeys to Mars and beyond. The same stands where NASA tested the Apollo rocket engines that launched our first journeys to the moon will be called upon again for the next era of space exploration, testing the engines for the Ares vehicles. On November 9, 2006, the A1 test stand was officially transitioned from Space Shuttle main engine testing to the Constellation program's J2X engine, which will power the second stage of the Ares 1 and the Earth departure stage of the Ares 5. On May 8, 2007, NASA announced Stennis Space Center would build a new test stand to perform testing on the J2X engine at altitudes up to 100,000 feet. The 300-foot-tall test stand with an open-frame design is the first large test stand to be built at Stennis since the 1960s. The main stage of the Ares 5 will be powered by 6 RS-68 engines. Testing for commercial applications of the RS-68 engine is currently underway at Stennis, and plans are underway for testing the Ares 5 engines at the South Mississippi facility. Although Stennis Space Center is known for rocket engine testing, the center's Applied Science and Technology Project Office plays a key role in the science community, leading the agency's Gulf of Mexico initiative. The Gulf of Mexico initiative is focused on engaging the stakeholder community to identify requirements and demonstrate the utility of NASA Earth science products for improved decision-making. The initiative uses NASA Earth science assets to address regional priorities defined by the Gulf of Mexico Alliance, including water quality for healthy beaches and shellfish beds, wetland and coastal conservation and restoration, identification of Gulf habitats, reducing nutrient input to coastal systems, environmental education, and coastal community resilience. The impact of Stennis Space Center on Mississippi, Louisiana, and the Gulf Coast region goes far beyond the smoke and flame of rocket engine testing and scientific work in the Gulf of Mexico. The center is one of Mississippi's largest employers, with a workforce of about 4,500, including 1,600 scientists and engineers engaged in space, ocean, environmental, and national defense programs. NASA's Shared Services Center, also located at Stennis, combines the functions of human resources, procurement, finance, and information technology for all of NASA at one single location. With such a large workforce, most of whom reside in the coastal counties of Mississippi and St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana, Stennis Space Center has a significant impact on the economy of the surrounding area. Schools in the region also benefit from the Space Center. The Education Office at Stennis is helping prepare NASA's next generation of explorers through teacher workshops and the popular children's camp, Astro Camp. In addition, Stennis is helping inspire students to pursue careers in engineering and technology by supporting FIRST robotics competitions with coaches, mentors, and other volunteers. In the early 1960s, when Stennis Space Center was established, there was a saying that to go into space, you have to go through Hancock County, Mississippi. Today, that saying still rings true, as much as it did more than 40 years ago.